Hi, Paul.
Well, hello all. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You're looking cool, Martin.
Why?
Because you've moved out from the sun, so we can see you now. So you're lit up correctly.
I'm not sure if that's right. I think I look pale because I don't know. I should go and do some hours underneath the, what do you call that, solarium?
Solarium. What's the weather like in there in Germany, Duisburg?
How was it like in the UK? I mean, here it was like stormy night, but it was they forecasted storm and it was a wind.
No, we had a storm. Now we got a proper storm. Storm Dudley. Yeah, do you have this? Do you have the names? Storm Dudley.
Yeah, I have to look it up. The name was different though. Dudley would have been nice, or Mr. Doolittle would be a nice name for a storm.
Yeah, probably not very, it's not strong enough. They should have a Storm Dinosaur.
Dinosaur, the Dinosaur Storm show, something like that. So
yeah, because it always begins with a letter, doesn't it? The next letter of the alphabet.
Do you think we already have some people that are alerted and know that we are online now? Let me just have a look. That would be interesting to see.
You never know. I mean, I'm online now.
Yeah, you are, but of course. But I'm wondering, nobody in there yet. So we only have two subscribers. So we have to work on that.
And one of them's me. So we have to put it on our Facebook that we're actually here.
Yes, we are here. Should we put that on Facebook? We could put the link on Facebook.
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Next time we do that.
Okay. Well, we're a bit late now.
We can put the link on Facebook where people can subscribe and then they get informed if something's happening. Then we don't have to remember every time when we are on that we have to send a link. That's like, what do you think?
I think that's a good idea.
Let's do it this way. What kind of board do you have? What's that whiteboard in the back?
It's fantastic. I love having a whiteboard. When the guy delivered that, it's a really long one. Like I think it's over 2 meters long, wide. And the guy had to walk down the driveway with it. He said, "Who wants this big boxed whiteboard?" I said, "That's mine. That's mine." Because for those of us who can't make decisions, it's really good to be able to keep writing and not have to stop and not run out of space. You never have to close in on a decision. You can just keep going with options.
So this is what you do. This is what you do when you've got some time off, right?
Yeah. It's what I do when I'm speaking. As well, I just go off on a big whiteboard.
Sorry. I think that's funny. So, whiteboard at home. When I'm bored, I just get on my whiteboard.
The next time I'm coming to you, I'm bringing that whiteboard.
Yes, please. I want one too. I just have to have a look where I can put it on the wall. I'm not sure if I find space for it.
You got to have a whiteboard. You got to have a whiteboard. So you need a wide wall.
That's pretty
it's
cool.
Also magnetic. So if you're metal, you stick to it.
Yeah, but you also have to have the right markers, because if you use the wrong ones, you will not be able to get it cleaned up again.
That is key. So you don't have anything that you can't erase in the house, in the room.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that using the wrong marker on a whiteboard of somebody else? Somebody else owns it and you use the wrong marker and just destroy it. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, but then there's a secret, isn't there? You go over the permanent marker with an erasable marker. And apparently that lifts it up. It's like, when you spill white wine on your carpet, red wine on it to get it off.
Well, that doesn't work. But I know what works. I know if you have a fireplace, like with what do you call them, the wood burner, yes, like with glass window, and you've got this black stuff on the window then you use the ashes to get it cleaned up. That works.
Now someone will have heard that tip in the future and they'll think, wow, that's so helpful.
It is really helpful. I heard from people that sounds a bit crazy, but I heard that is actually true, that they have used ashes to wash their horse, like horse, a white horse. They have a white horse and they use ashes to wash it with. and they say it works and it's really shiny afterwards. And they have even started to sell ashes for others who want to have a shiny horse as well.
Well, I think you can clean your teeth with charcoal, so it must be a similar principle. Yeah.
Well, I think Colgate has a black one. Have you not seen it? Colgate has a black toothpaste.
No, that wouldn't sell very well. It wouldn't sell.
It does.
Toothpaste. Who's going to buy that?
Sells. It works. I already bought it. It's not bad. You don't have it's not ugly. Your face, your teeth. I mean, at least they are not yellow.
They do go yellow eventually, but yeah.
Yeah, but not with a black coal.
That's true.
What are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, we were supposed to talk about, we were having a conversation, weren't we, about leadership? And you, as usual, say such good things and then claim you can't remember them afterwards.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
So
what did I say then?
Well, you started off with a fivefold ministry thing.
No, I didn't start off with a fivefold ministry.
You went there, Martin.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I know.
But I thought, I asked you the slightly provocative question, what is the point of leadership nowadays, or something like that? What's the point and purpose, and how do you do leadership in such a flat society where Facebook and whatever, everyone connects on a horizontal level?
Flat society is really what it is. Well, do you remember that we started off with the original command to rule and reign?
Yeah, you
have dominion.
That's good. Yeah,
and I think that's the best starting point. Anyway.
So what was that again? For those of us who can't remember,
what is happening with my light? Can you see that it's going?
It's going in and out. It's your camera, probably.
There's no police car outside. So I mean, maybe I should change the place and have the But,
you started with the original thought that God said to Adam and Eve, take dominion.
Yeah, in the German Bible, it's actually. Let me see. I've got a Bible here. I thought this time I bring Bibles because.
Do you still use a paper Bible, Martin?
Yeah, it's easier for me, because I tend to remember that stuff was. Yeah, I have got one like that as well, but I tend to remember that it was in the left corner.
I've lost that.
See, and I don't. I didn't. I still have that. So, and I like paper. It also has a nice noise sound.
And I bet in the German version, it uses a German word for dominion.
Yeah, it says. Well, let me see. I can see it. Where do you know where he says that?
Yeah, it's in the Bible.
Yeah, I know. Which chapter, which verse? It is not in chapter.
It's in chapter 1.
Yeah, it's chapter 1 and verse 28, of course, because every important thing is in 28, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll just nod as if I understand.
Yeah, seid fruchtbar und vermehrt. So it's be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and make and subdue it and rule or reign over fishes and so forth. So it's about ruling and
reigning. Yeah,
that would be the German expression. And I always thought if Adam was called to rule and reign, I thought, kind of boring because he only had one wife. So yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, I'm going there that there was nobody to rule over.
Oh, okay. Just his wife.
Yeah, and that's probably she ruled rather over him or something.
Except the command was to both of them, wasn't it? Am I understanding right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing is that I think that because if we today think of ruling and reigning, we think of, like Jesus says, in some place he says that the kings of this world rule and reign over you or something like that. What is the expression in English? So that's what we.
They lord it over you. That's the expression.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's our understanding of ruling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Usually, that somebody is telling me what I have got to do.
Yeah.
And I think today that it is actually not. It is the distorted perception of the word or of the concept that came to pass because of the fall of men. So the original concept was different. And I think the original concept is, man was positioned on the earth and he was having fellowship with the Father. So my interpretation is that he was actually able to access the heavenlies, or he was living from the heavenlies, from where he had fellowship with the Father, and having this access and this fellowship, he was able to receive from the heavenlies, or not, no, that's wrong. He actually was able to have dominion in the heavenlies, so that every created thing would be able to experience the culture and the life of the Father, and everything that has been created is able to flourish, to grow, and to prosper. So ruling and reigning is actually meaning bringing heaven to earth in such a way that everything that is created can prosper and experience well-being. So that's ruling and reigning. And that's also what Jesus did. He ruled and reigned in such a way that everybody around him was able to prosper and to be empowered, or to come into the fullness of who he is, or what it is.
I mean, so Martin, that's quite a thing that you're joining up, or you're marrying two concepts that people often keep separate, I think, which is like being in the heavens and living from there, and leadership, and how those two kind of have to go together. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let me see something here. I've got another Bible, and that's an English Bible, so I can read it from an English Bible. That's pretty cool. That's a smart move, when talking to you, having an English Bible, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Unless we switch to German.
Well, would you want to?
Not for long.
See here. I pray that you will continually experience the immeasurable greatness of God's power made available to you through faith. Then your lives will be an advertisement of this immense power as it works through you. This is the mighty power that was released when God raised Christ from the dead and exalted him to the place of highest honor and supreme authority in the heavenly realm. And now he is exalted as first above every ruler, authority, government, and realm of power in existence. He is gloriously enthroned over every name that is ever praised, not only in this age, but in the age that is coming. And he alone is the leader and source of everything needed in the church. God has put everything beneath the authority of Jesus Christ and has given him the highest rank above all others. And now we, his church, are his body on the earth, and that which fills him who is being filled by it. So what he says is that Christ is made the highest, to sit in the highest position in the heavenlies, and we are his body, so we are with him in the heavenlies. And I tend to say, if you're just this, what do you call it, when on your foot, underneath your foot, the last part of the skin, that's getting hard sometimes.
Sole, the heel.
Yeah, the heel, and sometimes it's hard skin that you want to scrub off. So even if you're this part of the skin, you're still with Christ above everything else.
That's hopefully you're a bit more than just the hard skin under his feet, Martin. But yeah, that's,
well, we are part of his body, so who's got the choice? I mean, but the truth is, this is the position of rulership that Christ himself took, and that we are placed with him. So it's in the heavenlies. There's like this gap between Adam, when he was moving with God and everything was okay, then sin came in, and then now being resurrected with Christ. And in the meantime, this void space in the heavenlies was filled by different powers. And now we are called back into rulership and reign, to reign with him. And we have the authority and power in Christ to reign from this position of authority, being above everything else. And our rulership and our reign has to do with the fact that we shall bring heaven to earth in such a way that everything that is created can really prosper. This is my understanding. This is my understanding of rulership and reigning, and I think it is pretty much connected with leadership.
I find that interesting because remember we were talking about the fivefold ministry, and I think it's not lording over, but it's
No,
you were suggesting it was moving out of a gifting that you have, and you can operate in that sphere, and everyone can operate in a sphere. But we were talking about the fivefold, and I said to you, have you ever looked at the Old Testament quotation that Paul is using for that? And
what was it? It was I remember.
I can't remember the name of the psalm or the number of the psalm he's quoting. I can remember it.
Yeah, he ascends into the heavenly height, taking his many captured ones with him. That's a psalm, yeah.
Yeah, and it's my understanding of that when you study it is it's referring to the captives he leaves captive are the spiritual forces that have opposed God, like the gods of old, that he takes them captive. And so that's what Christ has done. He's undone the rulership of what we might call principalities and powers. So, so that fits in with what you're saying.
Yes, in one translation, in the German translation, I remember that it says, he has captivated captivity. Something like that. And that's what you're saying, basically. He's captivated all those who were opposing God. And captivity, or other translation would be he's taken captive prison. He's taken prison captive.
Right. So what is this passage is quoting? I can't remember the notes. From Psalm 68. I have to look it up. Yeah, it's possible, Psalm 68, and it's a classic one about the gods of the heavens that oppose God.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of Jesus' message, isn't he? That he's overthrowing the rulers that have kept the world captive. So that totally fits with what you're saying, that was Adamic, that we would rule from the heavens. So these guys are booted out, so now we can sit in the heavens, or learn to operate in authority, and that's leadership. That when we do that, we can exercise true dominion, not lording it over, but true dominion that bears fruit on the earth.
Yeah, and leadership, I mean, if the fivefold comes into the play here now, I mean, the fivefold obviously is, if you want to call it fivefold, you can call it whatever you like it, but he's talking about apostles, prophets, evangelists, and so forth, these 5 gifts that I mentioned. Yeah. Some would say it's only 4 as well. I mean, they say that's the pastor and the teacher the same. Yeah, but whatever. I mean, I really don't mind. But the main thought here is that God gave some gifts in order that the body can function again the way he really intended the body to function. And I think here's one thing that I believe is really important, because it's what does it say? To nurture and prepare all the holy believers, or in other translations say to equip the believers, right? And sometimes you've got the feeling that people, I mean, this has a lot of aspects to that as well, because we have a culture. And I'm not saying why we have the culture, because it has been created by a dynamic that has many influences, but the culture that we have is that our services look like there is the apostle or the prophet or the teacher or the whatever, and he's got the mic, and now let me see how he can equip me.
Yeah.
And this is simply counterproductive, I believe. I mean, in a way, I do believe that there is times where we have to have this kind of teaching, but the idea is, the first thing is that it is about this equipping, that the word that I can look that up. That's best, because then people think I'm smart. But I do know how to use software sometimes. Let me see. That's really good. That's Ephesians. Come on. Ephesians 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I am understanding right, and just to steal your thunder here, Martin, that equipping is like the joining up. It's connected to the
but
sinews and the ligaments.
Yeah, it's katatismos. I found it. It's katatismos. And that is the really interesting part. The word was more used even in the not biblical context. In the Old Greek, it was used for chiropractic sort of stuff. Your katatismos, you're realigning ligaments back together with the joints and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is actually, the equipping of the saints is an alignment of every single part of the body with a complete body.
Yeah.
So I think this is important. And then also the goal is that the body can function as such in the way God has intended the body to function. And I believe the intention, God's intention is, I know, it's not that I believe, I know what God's intention is. God's intention is that the church would display the manifold wisdom of God to the principalities and powers. That's just a few verses later. No, before that's chapter 3. And so we are talking about that in the invisible realm, it becomes obvious that the church has received wisdom, which actually means it has received empowerment by grace through the cross, because that's where God's wisdom is. God gave Jesus in his wisdom to provide every needed grace so that we can live the life according to his plans. And we are to live this life so that the principalities and powers are put to shame, because they see that their intentions fail, getting us into grief, getting us into strife, getting us into being, this and that and that and that, and destructive and all these, or bitterness. These are forces that are actually battling against us, and God has given us every grace that's necessary to operate as a body, to make it visible that everybody would be able to live a life according to God's plan if you only receive the grace that Christ has released through the cross. And the fivefold ministry has the charge to empower the believers to live that life. And so it's an empowerment. It's a help to rule from heaven, from heaven's perspective. So leadership is just something to get us, to support it, to minister to each of us. So leadership is actually just servanthood.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting it so well, Martin.
So
you're saying that explore. I'm sure that you would. Yeah, explore what you mean in the sense that, can everyone then lead? If everyone can serve, everyone can lead. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that I believe that everybody has got a sphere of influence.
Yeah.
It seems to be random, sort of, but if you look, specifically Ephesians, when he talks about the heavenlies, and that's what I said before, we are ruling from the heavenlies. So that's the place of our authority. And he says in Ephesians 6, he says, because our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against spirits of evil, or evil spirits in the heavenlies, right? And I don't know if you have heard that, but I've heard different teachings about it, and some of them were related to our battle would, the impression would be that our battle in the heavenlies is like that we are screaming and yelling in tongues. But actually the context where our battle is mentioned is, first of all, live a marriage according to the will of God. Second of all, see to it that you raise your kids in the will of God. And third of it is, live a godly life in your workplace. So that's so normal things. And then he mentions the battle. So here's some stuff that I think is really makes it very, very plain. I use different examples when I explain that stuff, and I think one of this is this. Let's say marriage, right? Every evening, I'm taking off my socks. I hope you do too, by the way. And I am a man, which you are as well. So maybe you can identify. I'm not sure, but me as a man, I'm taking off my socks, and I really don't mind so much where they end up being. But then there's my wife, and we've got this basket that's supposed to receive all this dirty laundry, which I sometimes just do not remember. So what may happen here is that there is some sort of spirit around that just points my wife's attention towards the fact that once again, he did not put his dirty socks into the basket, and he never does it, and he will never learn it. Just depending on what's happening, but this guy is sitting on your shoulder and says, well, I never done. And then there's this explosion of feelings. And I'm not saying that she is the one who has to learn. Both of us have to learn. I have to learn that I'm living in the tenderness of the spirit to understand what is really important for her, and she lives in the ability to live in peace and communicate. But this is where the battle starts, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's another example. It's most of us usually visit a service on Sunday morning, let's say 10 o'clock or 10:30, because 10 o'clock actually really is too early. But 10:30, right? And you've got 3 kids. You get them ready for the service, and you have to leave the house at 10 o'clock to make it in time. So you have to have your breakfast at latest 9:30, so that you can leave at 10. And then you've got breakfast, but you're already a little bit too late. It's like 9:45 when you start your breakfast. And now one of your kids is really getting on your nerves. And that's where you lose it, because somebody is sitting on your shoulder, making you, supporting you in the fact that you really lose your temper now, right? And okay, but that's not the worst thing about it. It gets worse. You finally get to the service. You just stumble into the hall when the worship is already on, and you get to your spot in the church, and you want to worship. And now this thing starts. You want to worship, and this thing sits on your shoulder and says, "Remember how you lost your temper with your kid? You are not a good father, and now you pretend to be a good Christian, and you want to worship," right?
Yeah.
So this is stuff that is happening in this spiritual realm, I believe,
Yeah.
And that's where our weapons are. And so let's say we have a prophet in the church who empowers the body to fulfill the work of ministry, just as an example. And the church is really trained well, and everybody knows how to prophesy. So this father is on his spot, and the neighbor next to him receives, let's say, an impression from Holy Spirit, turns to the father, and let's say the father is like, not only that he lost his temper, but this thing with "you are not a good father" really is his wound. That's the thing where the devil gets him. So this guy turns to him exactly in that moment and says, "By the way, I've got this feeling that the Holy Spirit wants to tell you that you are such a great father, and he's proud of you." And I think this is something that can break, it can break things that are happening. So and it's that would be a result of a prophet helping the church to be empowered to move into the ruling and reigning from the heavenlies, so that everybody is equipped and so forth. This is how I would describe the whole thing. I mean, that's, of course, it's only an example, but I'm just trying to visualize some stuff that is happening. And of course, there's more. There's healing, there's supernatural gifting, and I'm all for that. But still, we sometimes forget that there are so many seemingly profane things that are going on, but there's still a battle, and that's why people often get caught up. So yeah. Does that make sense?
I think that's profound in a down-to-earth way. I mean, like you said, it is the context of Ephesians, and he spends a good time talking about taking sinful nature off and being clothed with Christ. And clearly, that's, you know, for want of a better word, it's behavioral, it's attitude, it's heart. And it totally fits. That's the context of the warfare. It is like, if we're going to sit on thrones ruling, it's about having a heart that can pour life through it. And that means that you're forgiving towards your wife and she's forgiving towards you.
But also at the same time, it's about believing who we are. I mean, isn't it interesting that I mean, we finally ended up in talking about Ephesians, but that's not a wonder, because I'm talking about that all the time. But you know, isn't it interesting that I think that Ephesians gives a roadmap of what is God's plan, how is the church involved, and how to do it. And isn't it interesting that it's starting? You know, I think that's really interesting. It starts with let me read that, because English, just translating what I know into English is not the best way to really do it, but it's so good. It says, every spiritual blessing in the heavenly realm has already been lavished upon us as a love gift from our wonderful Heavenly Father, the Father of our Lord Jesus, all because he sees us wrapped into Christ. This is why we celebrate him with all our hearts. And he chose us to be his very own. So just as a side note, in the German it says we are blessed with every spiritual blessing in the same way as we are chosen to be his very own. So it's connecting these two things, actually. And I think that's makes sense. So, and he chose us to be his very own, joining us to himself even before he laid the foundation of the universe. Because of his great love, he ordained us so that we would be seen as holy in his eyes, with an unstained innocence. For it was always in his perfect plan to adopt us as delightful children through our union with Jesus, the Anointed One, so that his tremendous love that cascades over us would glorify his grace for the same love he has for his beloved one, Jesus, he has for us, and so forth. And then it says, actually the German translation in that case really better, that we have the redemption through his blood and forgiveness according to his richness according to the richness of wisdom. We have the overflowing forgiveness. And I think what he says here, I mean, these are three, in German, it's only 3 sentences. It's like we are blessed with every spiritual blessing as much as we are called to be his sons. And then he says we have redemption by the blood and forgiveness. And if you take out just one sentence, it leaves the impression that the main blessings, or the most important blessings that he is talking about, is the redemption of his blood, by his blood, and the forgiveness. And I really believe that there is something to it. It's about living as sons and knowing who we really are, and that we do not have to perform to be who we are, but to remind ourselves that we are who we are. But then there's times where we need to remind ourselves that there's blood that brings us redemption because something went wrong. And then we have to remind ourselves that there is forgiveness because something went wrong. Or you can put it in the same thing in this other, the other word is, or the other image is John 3:16, you know, but before 16 is 15 and 14, and it says, like Moses erected the serpent in the wilderness, likewise as the Son of God has to be, the Son of Man has to be lifted up. And the story in the wilderness refers to the situation where I need to get some power before I'm losing. Yeah, just a second. So the story in the desert refers to this situation where the little snakes were biting people, and then they had to look upon the serpent. And the serpent, of course, is Jesus, right? Yeah. And if you just imagine that these little snakes would be sins in our daily lives, like stuff that we do wrong, the challenge is not to look at the little snakes, and not to look at our own strength and pray like, oh, Father in heaven, I know I did it wrong this time, but I'm going to be better next time. I really will. I promise you, I will be better next time. That's what he said. It's wrong. It's simply wrong. He says, look to Christ, look to him. And that's the same thing in Ephesians. You know, there's forgiveness and there's redemption, and we have to remind ourselves that this is the way to get out of every situation that we are in. And again, that's something apostles, prophets, teachers, and pastors ought to teach and help people to understand in order that they can flourish and live a lifestyle where the wisdom of God can be seen for everybody and for the principalities and powers.
Amen.
Sorry. We were not thinking that we were getting there, were we? No.
That's good stuff, Martin. It's good stuff.
I'm not sure, but I hope. How much time did we use so far?
About 40 minutes.
That's too much. I would have another question really, but maybe we cannot answer it this time. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I like to ask you a question. It is 2 Peter is. I know. Why are you laughing?
I think you're going to go to a specific verse. You're not going to go to the one about everything destroyed by fire or the elements destroyed by fire.
Exactly. That's where I'm going to go. I just want to know this.
Is this connecting to leadership, Martin, or you?
No, it's not leadership. It's really. Oh, do you want to ask something more about leadership, or do you have any more ideas about leadership? I mean, we can talk about leadership, and then I will not ask this kind of question. We can do it the next time. But I was going to ask. When is that? What is he talking about?
I think. Do you not have an opinion on that, Martin?
Well, about leadership. On leadership,
on that verse.
It's not a verse. It's almost a chapter.
Yeah. If you're talking about the one about the elements being destroyed by fire.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something that in helping you approach that, I think you need to know that you won't come. It isn't clear in English, and of course there's. Did you know, Martin? There's textual variation on that verse.
Yeah, I know.
So in other words, but the Greek word that's used there, elements, is the same one that's used in Galatians for. Is it Galatians or Colossians? I'm fairly sure it's Galatians, about the elements that are of the world system that are ruling. So most commentators, and I would fall on this, would say that's talking about spiritual beings. It's talking about spiritual forces. It's the elemental beings who influence the world. I think we're kind of back to the principalities and powers things, the ones that ruled before Jesus came and dethroned them, the ones that were over nations before. So they will be destroyed by fire. It's a sort of typical Hebraic way of thinking of things are rearranged. So it's like saying the heavens will be rearranged by the fiery judgment, the fiery cleansing of God.
So would you say this is past?
Would I say it's past? It's certainly not just in the future. I would say it was happening when Peter was saying it. I think you could say that it happened fairly recently after him writing it. You could say it's still going on.
What he says, the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away and the elements shall melt. And I do understand that I've heard many things about the heavens and the earth and stuff like that. One is like heavens and earth are also a word that was used for parts of the temple, of the sanctuary would be called the heavens, and then the outer room would be called the earth. That's one way people look at expressions that are used in similar contexts, but in this one I think it doesn't work. And then I learned that heaven and earth shall pass away is like, do you know Asterix and Obelix?
Certainly do.
Yeah, and the Galileans always say that the heaven would fall on our head.
Yeah.
And I heard that this is actually an expression that is used in the same way. Of course, with a more serious content, or more honest and more not joking about it, but when the system, like you said, the system of the times would been thrown over, and something new would be established. That would be a new heaven and a new earth that's coming. That was the expression they were, or one of the ways they were thinking or expressing things like that.
I think it's also alluded to in it with different terminology in Hebrews, when the writer of Hebrews is saying, why are you going back to the old system, to many of the people he's writing to, when really there's been an overthrowing and there's a new order, which is the order of Melchizedek. It's a new order.
We're not talking about the new world order now, do we? No, we're not.
No, but there's a new system, a new way, there's no longer that. Why are you still sacrificing bulls? Because that whole thing has changed.
But that's what I'm saying. Then there is a reference to a certain point in time as well.
Yeah, to the ceasing of that sacrifice.
Exactly, and that was at a certain point in time. It was not happening when Jesus died. It still was continuing, but then there was a time, and I mean, Hebrews is referring to that as well. He says that the stuff that is old and is overcome will be abolished soon, or something like that. I don't know what the English wording is, but
it's coming. It's ceasing to be. It's not.
Yeah. And that happened, but it didn't happen with Jesus' resurrection. It happened later, afterwards, when the temple was destroyed. Then the whole sacrificial system was finally brought to an end. And my question is, could it be that Peter is referring to a point in time as well, like that? You know,
I think he would be. I also have to hold in tension in my head, or in that things look slightly different from the heavens.
Yeah.
So things land on the earth in specific times, but that's not necessarily the main focal point. So it's like Christ died at the right time for us, but it's almost like, I mean, that's AD 30 or whenever it was. It's not a magical time.
No,
it's just that the heavens were ripe and it came to be. And of course it will have a physical manifestation, but the focus is the actual date. The focus is something has shifted here, which might also therefore not just be a specific day. It might be longer in its manifestation, but the reality is something utterly changed in the unseen, going back to the ruling from the heavens of Adamic stuff, that means that Christ's, the way God relates, if you like, to man now is made open, is exposed. Yes. It came at the right time. So now the way that God has forgiven all along is exposed. It was already happening in the heavens, but it was secret. And now, bang, it's visible to the principalities and powers, and it's visible on the earth. It happens in history.
Well, that makes it a little bit more difficult to understand if you just put it as a certain event that took place where we can fixate, where we can say that's where things changed, then it's easier to understand. I mean, I think you are right, because the Bible says that the Lamb was crucified or sacrificed even before the foundations of the world. That's what is written, isn't it? It's in the book of Revelation.
But I'm referring more to like how Paul says this, a secret in Ephesians, the secret that was kept hidden from generations before. So it was there. It was just a secret. The Christ dying was there. So I think it's like AD 70 is obviously a key time, but like people still sacrifice animals from then on. There's still animal sacrifice going on, but there's a system, an Aaronic system, that ceases to be at that point.
Exactly.
But it was already doomed from the time Jesus dies.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It was, I mean, for the new covenant was inaugurated with Jesus' death and resurrection. It was already there, but still the old continued for another 40 years, basically.
Yeah. So like the principalities are undone by Jesus' death, but there's still a rolling out of that reality, certainly in their lifetime.
That leads to a totally other interesting question, but I think we should ask that next time. But I can just say it leads to the question: how is everything gradually rolled out, or is there cataclysmic events, or this is also a question for our future, if you will, because but
that's for another time, because that's going to take a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
Martin, Thank you for sharing your insights, especially on Ephesians.
Come on. Paul, I mean, it's always good to talk, and it's always on both ends. And next time you will talk more than I do, I think. So, but I love it. It's good.
Yeah. Well, we should probably stop torturing people and end this live stream.
We can. I will play the music once more.
Yeah, that will be cool.
Because I really like it. We
want to create a memorable jingle that's associated with our two faces.
Totally. So let's look at our faces and listen to that.
This is good dad dancing music.
It's really good.
I think this is the music that
with the whiteboard in the background. Yay!
Bye, everybody.
I love it. Bye.